Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I'm from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about how the United States of America is no longer a racist country. Now, if you have been paying attention, you know that there has been a ridiculous debate going on a national scale ever since the Biden 100-day address to Congress and the subsequent Republican rebuttal by Tim Scott. And the debate goes something like this. America totally isn't a racist country anymore. Sure, at one point we might have done some racism, but pish posh, that's all in the past. And while Republicans and Democrats have been bouncing this idea back and forth in front of cameras and microphones, all across the United States of America, a slew of bills have been introduced to make it illegal to teach about critical race theory, slavery, or the history of racism in the United States of America. Or, barring that, if we do have to talk about it, at least we should be forced to teach both sides, because apparently there is a good side to racism and slavery that we should be discussing so that it's not a divisive issue. So while well-paid eggheads, pundits, and talking heads on cable news are going to bandy this about incessantly, what I am going to do is I'm going to bring you another edition of our weekly series entitled, What the Hell's Going On with Post-Racial America? This is where I get a whole bunch of stories from around the country in the last week that focus on race and possible racism. And then I share them all with you. And I let you decide for yourself if the United States of America is a post-racial country or if we are still, in fact, racist as fuck. Yeah, how do you like that? I let you decide instead of telling you what to think. Novel approach, I know. All right, here we go. Stow man charged with yelling racist slurs, threatening to use an AK-47 on a DoorDash driver. An Akron woman who recorded video of a man allegedly calling her racist slurs and threatening to shoot her with an AK-47 wants the man she accuses of attacking her to, quote, be kinder. James Rhodes, 53 of Stow, was arrested in connection with the incident. He's been charged with ethnic intimidation, a fifth-degree felony, and aggravated menacing, a first-degree misdemeanor. He's also been asked to leave the apartment complex where the incident occurred. Quote, he started following me. He was beeping at me. It was scary. It was very scary. I've never been through anything like that. I just figured he was being an asshole, but then he talked about the AK-47. Larkin said she didn't call the police immediately because she didn't realize that Rhodes's behavior may have been criminal. It wasn't until I talked with my mother later that night, she said. I didn't know at that time it was a crime with what people go through on an everyday basis. Wow, imagine living in a country where racism and intimidation is so commonplace, you can't even fathom that that kind of behavior would be illegal. There you go, everybody. A nice light intro video to this week's edition of So What the Hell's Going On with Post-Racial America? Next! Minnesota teen slammed for proposing to prom date with racist cotton-picking sign. Quote, if I was black, I'd be picking cotton, but I'm white, so I'm picking you. Will you go to the prom with me? Yeah, I can't imagine any of you out there are going to have a witty fucking retort or an easy excuse for this one, so I'm just going to point out that it happened and move the fuck on. Next! Golfer at Trails of Frisco course says racist message was written in the sand. Darius Jones expected to play a normal game of golf Wednesday morning at the Trails of Frisco Golf Club. Instead, he said he found a racist slur written in the sand and was met with indifference when he told a club employee. The golf's club shop attendant asked Jones what time the other boy was coming to meet him. Jones wrote in a widely circulating Facebook post. Quote, in the earlier days, boy was just a dressed up way of calling somebody the N-word. Jones told the Dallas Morning News on Thursday. No. Don't worry about it, Darius. They're still saying the same shit. Racists love to rehash the old tropes. It's like singing to the oldies for boomers. They love that shit. They can't get enough of it. As a black guy, I was kind of taken aback by it, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. When Jones and a friend approached the green at the 6th hole, he said they noticed the N-word written in the sand. Initially, Jones said he considered leaving the golf course. His friend was opposed. Quote, "My friend was like, well, you know, that's what they want us to do, so we continued on. Hell fucking yes, that's the way to roll." Family calls for more community policing after new video shows officers arresting a 91-year-old man with a walking stick. Officers say he was aggressively waving a walking stick at them, but then WREG-TV uncovered body cam footage of the incident. Here you go, gang. A shocker. I feel like I cover this exact story every week, only it's not this exact story. It just happens to be different cops in a different line of bullshit. But the theme remains the same. Cops attack non-white person. Cops arrest non-white person. Cops then file report and say non-white person was acting menacing and threatening, so they were unfortunately forced to assault, arrest, kidnap, and imprison said non-white person. Then footage comes out, the police go, and then investigate themselves to determine if they've actually done anything wrong. Do I need to continue here, or are we good with this one? Cool. Next! School assignment asks students why Derek Chauvin was found guilty if he didn't directly kill George Floyd. Ah, yes, that's right. Derek Chauvin didn't kill George Floyd. Gravity did. Derek Chauvin just happened to be along for the ride. Right? Next! Former Georgia deputy bragged about charging black people with felonies to take away their voting rights. A former Georgia sheriff's deputy who recently pled guilty to a federal charge of possession of an unregistered firearm once boasted about beating a black person he'd arrested and shared plans to falsely arrest black people for felonies to prevent them from voting, according to text messages he sent to an extremist group chat. Please, people, make no fucking mistake. This goes beyond the usual bounds of normal racism and goes into full-on white supremacy. This is what it looks like when white people try to oppress non-white people to keep them down. You know why? It's because they're afraid that those people are going to catch up with their lazy asses. I'm white and entitled. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. Wait a minute. There's a black person who now has the same job as me, who makes as much money as me. Oh, quick. Let's go oppress 20 million people so that I can maintain my place on the food chain while still being a lazy piece of crap. Next! 3 suspects charged in home invasion of black family in Michigan. Family says racial slurs were shouted. Just after midnight on Monday, a mother and her 2 children were awakened by sounds of intruders breaking into their Walled Lake, Michigan home. The mother's 13-year-old son heard the commotion, swiftly woke up his 9-year-old brother. Moments later, their mother was in their room armed with a gun and shooting through the bedroom window at the intruders. She called her husband, who was working overnight in Detroit while all this was going on, and he said he could hear the attackers using the N-word while threatening his family. 2 white men and 1 white woman were charged in the invasion and have had their bond set, which is concerning to the community and especially the family whose home they allegedly invaded. Again, people, I don't write these stories. I don't even search very hard for them. I just dig them up, read them to you, and then let you decide what the hell's going on. Cool? All right. Next! Man drives truck into Logan Boulevard picnickers, injuring woman after yelling anti-Asian comments in targeted attack. Quote, "It was obvious this guy intended to do this, and it was targeted," one witness said. "He literally turned his truck toward the group and hit them." The incident happened around 5:15 p.m. on Saturday in the grassy median at Logan Boulevard and Sacramento Avenue as numerous families were out in the neighborhood enjoying the warm spring weather. A group of about 10 to 15 friends were enjoying a cookout when the driver of a red pickup truck plowed into the group, trapping one woman under the truck and scattering bicycles and clothes across the lawn. The picnickers said the man argued with them leading up to the attack. Rob Lopez, who was part of the group, said he heard the driver say, "Fuck Asians" to his friend who is Asian before hopping the curb and ramming into the picnic. Ah, yes, I'm angry at somebody for not being white, so I'm going to get in my 4,000-pound truck and I'm going to run them over. Next! Black New York City Starbucks barista sues over arrest after filming cops while white bystanders were just asked to leave. Ah, yes, one of my favorite parts about post-racial, totally not racist at all America is when black people and white people are engaged in the same action and activity at the same time, and police tell the white people to cut it out while they beat and arrest black people for doing the very same thing. Next, South Carolina fire chief quits after racist Facebook post. Once again, do you feel like you've seen this story every goddamn week for the last few years? I have. It's like deja vu, only for racist shitbags. A South Carolina fire chief has resigned after igniting controversy with a Facebook post saying police should stop responding to black neighborhoods. France's Butch Gent has been suspended for the April 22nd post. The post said police should stop responding to calls in black neighborhoods and added, quote, "They will eventually kill each other and the fake news won't have the story." But don't worry, he said he wasn't making this post as a racist comment about, black on black violence. He said this was totally a valid critique of the media and the fake news media as they report on stories such as this one. Next. Restrictions in old home deeds across Washington state will get expanded scrutiny. Racial covenants placed in town and city charters prohibited people of certain races, nationalities, and religions from living in certain neighborhoods until housing discrimination was outlawed in the 1960s. The language hasn't been legally enforceable in decades, but remains in old property records. University of Washington researchers have investigated such covenants before, finding language affecting about 20,000 properties in King County alone. But they believe many more could still be on the books. And just in case you were wondering why in cities across the United States of America, people drive through bad neighborhoods and ask, gee, how come all the minorities live like this? Why would they live here? Well, it's pretty fucking easy. Bougie ass white people spent 4 centuries deciding which prime spots of real estate they wanted. Then they took all the minorities and squeezed them into tiny little spots that they didn't want to live in and said, here, you can have this. If you have any questions, please see all the wonderful places here in the Seattle area where only white people could buy houses well into the 1960s. Any questions, or are we good with this one? Oh, we're good. Okay. Next. Black man enslaved by white manager should receive more than $500,000 in restitution, court says. In 2019, John Jack Christopher Smith was awarded just under $273,000 in restitution, representing minimum wage and overtime he was not rightfully paid while working at the J&J cafeteria in Conway, South Carolina. Smith, who has an intellectual disability and an IQ of 70, was forced to work more than 100 hours per week without pay by Bobby Edwards, who took over management of the cafeteria in 2009. Yeah, that's right. Bobby just got a small whiff of power becoming the manager of a local cafeteria and promptly went out and enslaved a black man for a decade. Smith had worked at the restaurant as a dishwasher since 1990, but when Edwards took over, he began taking advantage of Smith, forcing him to work. Quote, Edwards affected this forced labor by taking advantage of Jack's intellectual disability and keeping Jack isolated from his family, threatening to have him arrested and verbally abusing him, according to court documents. His control over Jack also involved physical abuse. In 2019, Edwards pleaded guilty to 1 count of forced labor, and the district court sentenced him to a meager 120 months imprisonment. That's right, max 10-year sentence for kidnapping somebody and forcing them to be a slave for more than a decade. Literally, this guy is going to do less time in jail than his slave did in 100-hour-a-week forced labor. That tells you all you need to know about the state of our current legal system in the United States of America. Woohoo! That's justice, everybody. As in, it's only for just us. Please also note, he was not convicted of kidnapping. He was not convicted of slavery. He was not convicted of physically abusing and assaulting somebody else with an IQ of 70 who couldn't even protect themselves. No, 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 no. The only thing that he was convicted of was defrauding capitalism. Oh, that's right. We don't care if you beat people or enslave them, but you know, if you deprive them of their pay, well then they're not paying payroll tax, and we can't have that. So I guess we're unfortunately going to have to send you to jail, Mr. White Man. Now, as I said back in the intro, I am not going to try to tell you what to think, and I'm most assuredly not going to tell you what your opinion should be. But what I will say is that there's a reason that this is a weekly reoccurring segment, and there's a reason why I never have any shortage of content to review with you when I do it. What I will tell you, though, is that I'm going to keep doing this every goddamn week until this country stops being so fucking racist that I can pull 12 racist stories out of my ass in a 10-minute span before I flip the camera on. Just a little, I don't know, food for thought for y'all at home in the cheap seats. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.